What if the atomic bomb was never dropped, forever changing the course of history? Would the war have lasted indefinitely, and half of the island nation fallen into the hands of an Eastern power? The end of World War II has always been a controversial turning point, shaping the world we live in today. History records that nuclear weapons hastened the surrender, ending one of the bloodiest conflicts. Without it, how long would the war have lasted? What would have been the fate of a nation and the world? In the summer of 1945, the Pacific was tense. A resilient empire still resisted fiercely. Despite heavy bombardment, they maintained the spirit of 100 million sacrifices together. They prepared for the final battle on their homeland with an uncompromising will. Allied forces stood at the threshold of a large-scale landing on the homeland. Operation Downfall promised to be the largest landing in history, with horrific casualties. Both sides anticipated terrible losses. A bloody end was imminent. In this context,
these
a new
blueprints
secretly
describe
developed
with perfect
technology
precision the
promised a
operating
way
process
out.
of this device.
Without the atomic
The islands
bomb,
of Japan,
the Allied
stretching
Operation
across the
Downfall
Pacific,
would have been
became the key
unavoidable.
battleground.
With Ketsugo, the entire populace would participate, turning every mile of land into a bloody battlefield. At the same time, an Eastern power would advance, targeting the northern part of this island nation. This occupation could divide the country, creating a democratic People's Republic in the north. The world would witness a prolonged conflict, forcing the Allies to launch Operation Downfall. Thousands of warships, aircraft, and millions of soldiers gathered for the historic landing. A young Western soldier who thought the war was over would have to set foot on the beaches of Kyushu. He would face civilians, from the elderly to teenagers, armed with bamboo spears and deep hatred. These people were determined to carry out Operation Ketsugo, turning Kyushu into a bloodbath. Allied assault waves clashed with strong defenses and suicide attacks. Every town and hill turned into a defensive position, prolonging the resistance. Horrific casualties, far exceeding predictions, depleted Allied resources. Field hospitals were overwhelmed with wounded soldiers, causing a strong wave of public outcry. News of hundreds of thousands of deaths spread, shocking the warring public. Thousands of Allied aircraft and warships filled the sky and sea, preparing for the fateful battle. The populace, from the elderly to children, prepared to confront, turning every inch of land into a fortress. The war unfolded on every street, in every house, with fierce resistance until the last breath. Allied morale declined, and weary soldiers questioned the meaning of this war. Resistance slogans were written everywhere, and the populace maintained their spirit of dying for the country. Eastern forces consolidated control over Manchuria and Korea, preparing for the next step. A small fleet crossed the sea, successfully landing on the desolate, rugged beaches of Hokkaido. The Hokkaido defense line quickly collapsed, and the population fled in panic from the cities. A major city in Hokkaido fell to Eastern forces, marking a significant defeat. A temporary border was established, separating this island from the rest of the country. Famine raged everywhere, and people desperately searched for food in the rubble. Millions were displaced, crowding into makeshift refugee camps, lacking everything. The exhaustion of resources and manpower plunged East Asia into instability for many years. An elderly man and a teenager who wore military uniforms, with resolute determination on their faces, against the backdrop of a devastated city. A woman and children practicing with bamboo spears, their faces full of determination in a war-torn village. A detailed tactical map with arrows pointing to the main islands and numerous military symbols moving on it, resembling a battle plan. A dramatic illustration of thousands of landing craft and military aircraft advancing towards a vast coastline, engulfed in smoke. This scenario would reshape the world order, and this island nation would be clearly divided. The North would be
from
under
the original
Eastern influence,
13 colonies
and the South supported by
to
the
a
West,
nation
forming two
unified.
political entities. This division would create new flashpoints, escalating Cold War tensions. The island nation's economy would be more severely devastated, with slow and difficult reconstruction. Especially in the North, the centralized economic model would hinder development. The miraculous development of the 50s and 60s would likely never happen. This island nation would not be able to quickly become a global economic power. Geopolitics would change, with the Eastern power solidifying its position in East Asia. This could lead to a more intense arms race, both conventional and nuclear. Powers would strive to assert dominance, and Western alliances would struggle. The island nation society would bear deeper scars of war. The tragedy of the landing and division would be deeply ingrained in the national psyche. The nation would be divided into two distinct political entities, each region having a different form of government. This dividing line would become a wall of tension, symbolizing the Cold War in East Asia. The South, though backed by the West, would also develop slowly, with many lingering traces of war. The Eastern power would seize warm water ports, significantly strengthening its regional naval power. An underground arms race would take place, with silent nuclear development lacking international oversight. Cultural division would be deep, with the two regions developing in completely different directions. Memories of the war would become a bitter lesson, deeply etched in the national soul. The urgency of nuclear arms control treaties would diminish, and the world would face greater risks.
We've considered all proposals.
The world would enter an era full of instability, with new geopolitical boundaries drawn in blood. The daily lives of the people in the two regions would differ profoundly, reflecting opposing ideologies. Traditional, unique art forms of the nation might have been lost or completely changed. Art in the North would develop in a propagandistic direction, serving political purposes. The proliferation of nuclear weapons could increase, making the world more dangerous than ever before. This turning point shows how difficult decisions in the past shaped the present world. Not using weapons of mass destruction doesn't necessarily mean more peace. It just replaces one tragedy with another. Thank you for joining History's Forked Path. Share your thoughts and subscribe to the channel.